I'm in awe of the resolve and the determination of the Ukrainian people to fight against the tyranny that Putin wishes to inflict on Ukraine in his attempt to liberate them. Putin's shown his true colours as an abuser. He's just far more dangerous because he's got an atomic arsenal at his disposal. As a survivor of domestic abuse and parental alienation, I see Putin's tactics as no different to the tactics our abusers use. And NATO must act now because every day we give in to him, he feels more empowered. Alexander Vindman, who bravely testified at Trump's impeachment, has echoed this in a tweet. Mr. President, you're inviting disaster and emboldening Putin. This declaration invites Putin to pursue every means possible to subdue Ukraine. Our abusers don't care about the damage that they cause either. They only care about getting their own way. We only have to think of the children who have lost their lives at the hand of an abuser to understand this, and Putin is no different. Part of me doesn't want to conflate Ukraine's desperate plight to live free from oppression with our plight against our abusers. But there are so many similarities that a number of us have talked about it in the recent days, and how this conflict has triggered us, bringing up all those emotions that we've long buried. It reminds us of the tactics our own abusers used, just without the threat of an atomic arsenal at the disposal. So, what are the similarities? Well, have a glance at these, and I'll explain how I see Putin's moves reflected in my own experience. First one is repeatedly denigrates, demeans, and devalues. Ever since the Revolution of Dignity in 2014, Putin has maintained that Ukraine is ruled by a fascist junta. You only have to watch The Winter on Fire to know how determined the Ukrainian people are to be free of oppression. For 8 years now, they have endeavoured to establish Ukraine as a free European country, despite Putin and Trump's best efforts to hamper this. Putin reportedly refused to call Zelensky by his first name, refers to him as the leader of a gang of drug addicts and neo-Nazis, all in an attempt to devalue Ukraine's standing in Russia. And such an insult to someone proud to be Jewish. Our abusers do exactly the same thing, often encouraging our children to call us by our first name, putting us down continually in front of the child, and to friends that the child believes that it's okay to be disrespectful to an apparently unworthy parent. Secondly, they isolate the child and the other parent from friends and family. The world saw how Putin wooed Trump to delay the aid so desperately needed. Now he tells the Russian people that the Ukrainians never really had a stable tradition of real statehood, and that they are suffering under the regime. Our abusers do exactly the same thing. Child arrangement orders are repeatedly broken, and court orders are breached with impunity because it's in the child's best interest. I don't think so. And now Putin has invaded to carry through with his intention to isolate Ukraine from the West, with the message that it is in Ukraine's best interest. I don't think so. And we're meant to believe this. Thirdly, causes financial hardship. Putin used his oligarchs before the invasion to undermine the Ukrainian economy, and now he is just systematically destroying the state so there is nothing left. Meanwhile, his dirty money is stashed in the West, and he lives a charmed life in Moscow. For us, divorce, court fees, extortionate CMS payments, plus, in many cases, the inflammatory allegations that are made to destroy the victim's parents' reputation and their ability to work, have left us with nothing to live for. These are all common amongst victims of parental alienation, while the abuser apparently lives the life of comparative luxury. Both Putin and our abusers are devoid of any compassion. They really don't care. Fourthly, interferes with parental responsibility. Our abusers remove us, loving parents with parental responsibility, from health and school records, and nobody questions it, or whether this is right. And if the targeted parent is asked to be put back on again, they are met with, every excuse. Data protection is usually cited. Putin has similarly used his influence with NATO and EU, threatening hostilities should NATO issue Ukraine and Georgia with a map, a membership action plan. Both have had the intended impact of preventing the victim to fulfill their responsibility to their own flesh and blood, or in Ukraine's case, to their own nationals. The next point, makes false allegations. I could go forever on this one, but anyway. Abusers love to throw false allegations, accusing victims of being paedophiles, alcoholics, drug users, suicidal and mentally unstable, promiscuous, and that their children are at, wait for it, significant risk of harm in the care of a targeted parent. They don't need any evidence to make this allegation, and the family court is obliged to do a fact-finding. By the time all the facts have been collected and the victim parent is found to be totally and utterly innocent, the damage has been done. Worse still, the child believes the allegations and doesn't feel safe with the targeted parent anymore. To add insult to injury, despite the victim parent being found innocent, there are absolutely no consequences for the abuser, no fines, no penalties. Hence, no justice. Putin is no different. He has made so many false allegations, accusing them of having parasitic attitude, that they are a gang of drug addicts and neo-Nazis who have holed up in Kyiv and taken the entire Ukrainian nation hostage. Zelensky, quite rightly, has retorted to the Russian people, "You are told we are Nazis. But could a people who lost more than 8 million lives in battle against Nazism support Nazism?" Russia took its gaslighting to new heights at the United Nations as its ambassador accused the US of funding a biological weapons program, can you believe it, in Ukraine, using bats and birds and fleas to spread deadly agents, and again denied that they'd even attacked Ukraine. And now the world watches as Putin continues to spread his lies in the echo chamber around him, and Ukraine is systematically destroyed, just as a victim parent is. Destroys or disposes of gifts and mementos, photographs and letters. Daily, we hear of parents whose presents have been returned, adult alienated children, years on, telling us that they never received their gifts, just so the abuser could tell the child that the other parent didn't care. We see this now in Ukraine, Putin accusing Ukraine of fake news. Sky News have a headline that reads, "Russia says the claim that it bombed children's hospitals is fake news." The last similarity, it burdens the child with angry or emotional outbursts. The Russian people now have to live with the sanctions that the West have imposed on them. Putin will convince them that it is for their greater good. Just as our children have to live in fear of their abuser's wrath, neither can oppose the aggressor because that would be seen as treachery. They've seen the way that the aggressor has treated the victim, and they fear that they will be next. It's much easier to believe the lies when one lives with the abuser than to confront them. Worse still, our children will stand up for the abuser, hoping to be rewarded for loyalty. Fascism is no different. It requires oppression to exist. And to top it all, Putin promises the Russian people that this is an operation to liberate the Ukrainian people. Our abusers make similar promises to our children. When our children realise that they've been duped by the person they trusted, it's too late. My message to the world is, do not be duped by Putin and the Kremlin. This conflict is deadly. It is clear that Putin wants to annihilate Ukraine because if he can't have Ukraine, no one can. Does this sound familiar? How many innocent children and victims of domestic abuse have been killed? So, could we reason with our abuser? No. Just as NATO can't. Did our abuser ever show any remorse for their actions? No. And neither will Putin. With 2020 vision, would I have done anything differently? Yes. Oh yes, I would have intervened at the earliest possible moment so that the trauma my poor child experienced was minimised. My message to the world is stop pussyfooting around. Minimise the trauma by taking decisive action now. In the meantime, it would be good to remember why they are fighting. When Zelensky was inaugurated, he said, "I do not want my picture in your offices. The president is not an icon, or an idol, or a portrait. Hang your kids' photos instead and look at them each time you are making a decision." That's why I will continue to fight the injustice that is parental alienation and why Ukrainians fight against total annihilation. All we want to do is to protect our children and give them a future that is worth living for.